This conference will now be recorded.
So in last session, I have discussed about how exactly we need to move data using Azure Data Factory service, right? So Azure Data Factory version 2, we discussed in the last session, right? So what is ADF, right? So it is fully managed by Microsoft, guys. So when compared to other ETL tools in current market like SSIS, Informatica, Data Stage, Talent, there are many ETL tools in current market, right? So we have when compared to other tools, those tools actually we have to set up everything, the infrastructure and everything we have to be set up. And with respect to, so as we discussed, with respect to cost, with respect to performance, with respect to productivity, and with respect to security, and ADF will much more efficient than those tools. Okay, and it is fully managed by Microsoft. You no need to worry about underlying infrastructure and everything. Serverless data integration solution, guys. Okay, it's a serverless. You no need to worry about underlying server maintenance and everything. Everything is taken care by Microsoft internally. It is serverless data integration solution for ingesting the data. Okay, ingesting the data in the sense just want to load the data, right? We discussed in yesterday's session, right? So just want to move data from one of DB to target database, right? So Amazon DB source is Amazon DB and target is Amazon target database, right? And we also discussed about one real-time use case moving the couriers from India to US, right? So just want to just ingest the data in the sense just deliver the data to the target for ingesting and preparing and transforming all of your data at scale, guys. So what it means, you're trying to ingest the data, that is fine, and you have to be prepared. So what customer need, right? So based on the customer need, you have to prepare the data and transforming the data. So using Azure Data Factory service, right? In 2018, guys, while they are designing this tool, we don't have any transformation logic. We generally do with some SQL. They use some SQL for doing transformation. From 2019 onwards, we have a mapping data flows came into picture, and where we need to do the all kinds of transformations. They all are code-free transformations. No need to worry about the code at all. So we can discuss. They just drag and drop. Okay. So we can discuss clearly how you need to transform the data. Before going to transform the data, we just discuss about how you need to ingest the data, right? So how you need to copy the data from one location to another location, right? So we can discuss these things, and at the simple terms, so you can do, what can you do in Azure Data Factory? What exactly you can do in Azure Data Factory? In the sense, you can do many things in Azure Data Factory. I like to simplify it to two main tasks. Okay, so I like to simplify it to two main tasks. One is you can copy data. Okay, so this is for different kinds of maybe on-prem systems, or maybe your SQL server, maybe your laptop, right? Your personal laptop. You want to move some data to the cloud. Using Azure Data Factory service, you can move to the cloud. There might be different kinds of storages. So you can just want to load the data into those storages. Just copy data and transform the data, guys. Okay, and this is a symbol for pipeline. Okay, you can create a pipeline, and you can be able to, pipeline is a just for an activity, a logical grouping of activities where you need to transform the data. Okay, so this is for maybe from another cloud if you want to connect, and you can move the data to Azure cloud. And from storage account to, you can be able to move the data from the storage account, transform the data. So just want to do some transformations and load the data finally into maybe SQL database. Okay, at just a high level, guys. Okay, high level, just want to copy the data from source and moving to the cloud. Okay, and you can transform the data and load the data again into one maybe database, SQL database, or data lake, or anywhere. Okay, so we can be able to load like this. These are all some many, I mean, simplify that main tasks. Okay, and what are all the high level concepts of Azure Data Factory service? Okay, so if you talk about Azure Data Factory service, in yesterday's session I have discussed about the link services and data sets, right? And also compute I have discussed. So in today's session, what are all the high level ADF concepts? So just remember, so I have, for example, in this file 1, okay. So I have file 1, file 2, file 3, and file 4. This is my source system. Maybe your local laptop, right? Or wherever it is, okay. So these 4 files are available maybe in a source system, okay. So some source system. So we can discuss what are all the source systems we can connect with ADF, and this is a target, okay. So I have this source system and the target system, okay. So I want to move this file 1, file 2, file 3, and file 4. So what is the first step you need to do, right? So in as per discussion, right, in yesterday's session, I just discussed about your first step. Let's take an Azure Data Factory. This is ADF, and your first step always need to create a link service, right? So when you create a link service, so first step is always link service, and second step always need to create a data set, and your third step also need to create a link service. Your fourth step again you need to create a data set, right? So what exactly, I mean, after you creating a data set link services, after what exactly you need to do? You have to do some activities, right? So what kind of activity you need to do? You need to do the copy activity. I want to copy file 1, file 2, file 3. Only till file 3 I want to load into target system, right? So my intention here is I want to load file 1, file 2, and file 3. I don't want to move file 4, okay. So I just want to copy these files from source system and move it to the target system, okay. So your first step, so whenever you want to create an Azure Data Factory service, right, your first step always need to create. This is what you need to do in a real time. Once you joined into a company, guys, so you have to request your superiors to provide an access to the subscription. Remember this point. We also need to discuss about what is subscription, where we need to for example, if client have different business functions, we have for each business functions we have a different subscriptions, okay. So as we discussed in a previous session, so subscription nothing but, for example, you are going to create a free trial subscription for you to practice, right? So we generally need to organize these resources, okay. Under the subscription, Microsoft, they will charge based on your subscription. Under the subscription, the resources you have used, they will not charge an individual resource level. Instead, they will charge on subscription level, okay. So we will keep these resources under the subscription, under the resource group, as we discussed in a previous session. And so they further categorized into resource group, and we will keep all the resources like Azure Data Factory resource, storage account, Key Vault, or Databricks, or whatever the services we just want to keep inside the subscription or inside the resource group. So how exactly you need to create those, and how you need to create a resource group, and while creating this service, each and every service, how you need to keep all the subscription resource group details that we can discuss practically once we created the portal, guys. Okay, at a high level, try to understand we have this file 1, file 2, file 3, and file 4 in my source system, and I want to move this file, I want to copy these files, and I want to load into target. So your first step, let's discuss about your first step. Your first step always need to authenticate, right? So you already aware in yesterday's session, we need to authenticate, right? So if I want to connect to the source system, I need some username and password, right? So even if I want to connect to your laptop, I need some username and password, right? So, so just for connection, okay? Just for connection, I just want to, this is first step. And my second step here, create a data set, right? So here what I want to do, select the files, right? Select the files. So whatever the files I have, I just want to select file 1, file 2, file 3. Okay. So this is what we can have the data set. So once you have connection is fine, the connection link service, we can call it as in ADF terminology. So connection is established successfully, then you need to create a data set. Okay. So then after you select the file, so just want to explain, this is a data set, guys. Okay, you have to be habituated with these terms. That is the reason initially it is bit maybe for you guys to understand the terminology, it's a bit different. Here we can call it as link service. So this is the link service. Okay, so link service we can call it. Your second step would be data set. Okay, so this is the data set that you have to create. So your third step also need to create you need to establish a connection to target as well, right? So your third step would be create another link service to connect target. Okay, so I have to use this, I have to connect to the target, and I have to use the username and password again to connect to the target system, right? So even in a so we discussed about courier service, right? So even for the courier delivery person, he will be authenticate with the target person also, he is the right person or not, right? So once he's the right person, then he will deliver the items. Even here also, once you receive the files, file 1, file 2, file 3 from source, once he authenticated this all this information from source, target side also is going to authenticate, guys. Okay, before going to this deliver these items to the target person, he's going to authenticate with the target person, right? So that is third step would be again create a link service to establish a connection. Okay, so your fourth step would be created data setter. Okay, because you have to be right in some location, right? So I have file 1, file 2, file 3, that is fine, but I have to load into somewhere, right? So some location, right? So I just want to so my source files are there in some container, some folder, and the target also I'll be able to load into one folder. Okay, for example, my source files are available in a raw folder. My target file I want to load into refined folder. Okay, some folders, guys. Okay, so even in your laptop also you have C drive, D drive, E drive, and all, right? So you will be able to keep all your files in a C drive or D drive anywhere, right? So just to create one folder and you just generally keep that files, right? Here also in a source system we have a folder. Inside the folder we have number of files, file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4. So even in a target also, I want to load these files into somewhere, some folder I want to load. Okay, you can call it in ADF terminology container. Okay, so these are all different kinds of storages. So for example, this is a blob and this is a data lake. Okay, so these are two different storage accounts, guys. Okay, in a cloud we have these storage accounts when you want to move data from source to target. Okay, so just we can initially we'll take an example of blob to data lake. Both are cloud, you no need to worry about. They're simple storage accounts, guys. You can load any kind of data in both the storage accounts, like structured data, semi-structured data, unstructured data. Okay, you can load any kind of data, but So we can discuss, guys, both, because what is exactly the difference between blob and data lake? Because blob is mainly meant for loading unstructured kind of data, but still you can load any kind of data. So that what is that blob storage, and we can discuss clearly. What is the data lake also we can discuss. Okay. So I have discussed about our first step and second step, third step, fourth step, right? So here I have to what is my fifth step here? I have to create a pipeline, guys. Okay. So what is pipeline? So my fifth step is pipeline. So if you want to move this file, right, file 1, file 2, file 3, I have to create a pipeline. So pipeline is a, for example, there should be some activity, guys. Okay. So whether it is copy activity or whether it is any, if I want to move, right, file 1, file 2, file 3 to the target, I have to use one activity, that is a copy activity. Okay. So we have to use activity. So try to, because once you start creating these pipelines, right, so pipeline is a logical grouping of activities. Okay, in the sense, so maybe you want to perform a copy activity, maybe you want to perform another activity like filter activity, maybe you want to perform validation activity, maybe you want to perform if condition activity. There are multiple activities where you need to complete your task. So you can clearly understand once I start explaining practically how you exactly you need to move the file from source to target. So pipeline nothing but a logical grouping of activities. Okay, so each activity we need to use, and to so for a data movement we'll use copy activity. So actually Microsoft they categorized all these activities, guys. Okay, now I'm talking about a copy activity. I'll show you what kind of activities we have and how you need to use these activities in a pipeline. Okay, and again I'm explaining, guys. So this should be very very important. You have to be understand this terminology, you have to be understand this concept, so that going forward for every examples are associated with this concept. Okay, so first step, always need to create a link service. We can call it as just need to authenticate. And second step would be we need to select the files, file 1, file 2, file 3. In ADF terminology we can call it as a data sets. And third step would be, again, we need to authenticate, right? So we need to authenticate to the target, and we need to create a link service for that. Okay, and even for fourth step would be here, create a data set to write the file into somewhere, some location in target location, right? So this is the fourth step. And my fifth step would be create a pipeline. Okay, so for example, guys, you generally have seen that pipeline, normal pipelines. When you talk about pipelines, I mean, moving water from one place to another place, generally we will use lot turbo pipelines and all, right? So here also, when you want to move these files, when you want to file 1, file 2, file 3, so when you want to move these files, you need to use a pipeline. Okay, inside a pipeline we can have an activities. Okay, what kind of activities we need to do? We need to do the copy activity, we need to do the filter. Maybe you don't want all these files, I want only file 1, file 2, file 3, you just want to filter, right? So using the activities. So pipeline is a logical grouping of activities, and where you need to accomplish your task, where you need to complete your task. Your task is moving file 1, file 2, file 3 to target. Okay, so try to understand. And internally, in we discussed in the previous session, right, compute, right? So if I want to move this file 1, file 2, file 3 to target, so I need some compute infrastructure, right? Some compute infrastructure in the sense, if for example, guys, if you want to move data from one laptop to another laptop, you should have some internet, right? If you drop an email, at least you should have some internet storage, memory and all, right? So these are all mandatory, right? So that's what I'm talking about, compute infrastructure. So compute infrastructure is taken care by integration runtime. There is a concept, integration runtime. This compute infrastructure and everything is managed. So you no need to worry about, by default you have that auto resolve integration runtime. So the compute infrastructure and everything is managed by integration runtime. Okay, and it is used by Azure Data Factory Service. Okay, so on top we have Azure Data Factory. Okay, so this is what Azure Data Factory, this is what we need to do in Azure Data Factory at a high level, guys. Okay, so we need to create a pipelines, activities, and so there are different kinds of activities we can discuss. Okay, going forward, how they categorized all the activities, and we have data transformation activities, we have data movement activities, we have control flow activities, different kinds of activities that we can discuss going forward. So till now, any questions, guys? Okay, till now, if you have any question, please ask, because if you're not understanding this concept right, so you cannot understand anything going forward. So try to understand. So even small questions also you can ask, this. Okay, you have to be understanding.
Yeah, yes, sir, Naresh here.
Suresh,
Yeah, Naresh, go
yeah,
ahead.
Suresh.
Yeah,
Hello,
sir, can you
can you hear
please
me?
give me a brief on integration runtimes? I mean, actually, you said right, auto resolution integration runtime. That
Correct.
is generally when we are practicing time, it will be okay. Then when coming to the real time, it will be showing. I mean, we need to configure that self-hosted runtime, right?
Correct.
Uh, but can you please explain those things, or if it is possible, you can
Yes,
cover
yes.
in today, or uh,
Yeah, we have separate section for this integration runtime concept, guys. So but at a high level, what I'm trying to explain here, so I'm talking about the compute here, integration runtime. It basically provides an compute infrastructure in ADF. We have two
mm,
types of integration runtimes, guys. Okay, so when there are two different ways actually here. So if I want to move data from cloud to cloud, for example, I have some data in Amazon, right? Amazon Web Services, maybe Amazon S3. I have some data, and I want to move the data to the cloud. Okay, so I can, even without you installing any integration runtime, I can use auto resolve integration runtime, and I can move the data. So no need to worry about the terminology, maybe because few people are new this concept, because we can start a separate session for this, and how exactly you need to connect to that. Using auto resolve integration runtime, and how you need to create your own integration runtime. Sometimes I don't want to move my data to another region, another geographical location, then I need to create an integration runtime. If I want to connect to on-prem systems or any private network or any virtual network, right? So we can install this self-hosted integration runtime, guys, because since it is a private network, right? It's an on-prem system. So you can install this SHAR in on-prem VM where your source system is resides, or else you can install this in Azure VM, and you can be able to authenticate the key which we have generated from Azure Data Factory. So there are different techniques, guys. Okay, you have to, because one by one we will come. Okay, if I can start explaining all these integration runtimes, and so at a high level, what you need to understand, integration runtime basically it will provide a compute infrastructure, and it is used by Azure Data Factory. Okay, what is this compute infrastructure? You can have that network, storage, memory. So all these things can be taken care by integration runtime. By default, you have this integration runtime while creating Azure Data Factory service. If you want to move data from cloud to cloud, or if you want to move data from public network to cloud, you cannot install any external integration runtime. By default, you have this integration runtime. Okay, so compute, I'm talking about a compute, so we can call it in ADF terminology integration runtime. And in real time, once you start working, so whether you are trying to move data from public network to cloud or on-prem to the cloud, because we don't know that system environment, right? On-prem system, whether it is hosted on a private network or public network or any virtual network, right? So based on that, you have to be use this integration runtime. Okay, so we can discuss clearly. First, we need to discuss about why we need to use Azure Data Factory and what are all the advantages of using Azure Data Factory. And then we start. I'll explain about integration runtime. When we create an integration runtime, what is the necessity of creating an integration runtime? We can discuss clearly some analysis on that, and going forward with some diagrams, okay, so that you guys can understand clearly. Okay, any other questions, team?
Suresh, I got one more question here.
Yeah,
So far, what I've heard, like I'm considering this way. Let's say pipeline means basically flow of a data from source to target, right? So isn't it like the fifth step already contain one, two, and three, four, or how we can, differentiate it? Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Good question actually. So, I mean, whenever you want to create a pipelines, guys, generally you can go. We generally do that. So first we need to create for any source system, right? First you need to establish a connection, right? So then you need to create a data set to select the file, and then you start creating a link service for target and creating data set for target location and where exactly you want to load, right? So then I start creating a pipelines. So pipelines, once you start establishing a connections, then you can go to pipeline, start creating a pipeline, and inside a pipeline you're going to use multiple activities based on your requirement. Okay, so there are multiple activities in a pipeline. Okay, so what kind of activities we have, we can discuss that. Okay, so these are all the sequence of steps you need to follow while creating these pipelines in a real time. Okay, any other questions?
Suresh, am I audible to you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I had a question related to transformation. So when you say transformation, what kind of example can you give me? Like from which kind of what type of file it'll transform into, from which type of file?
Yeah. So here, transform in the sense we'll perform some transformations, right? Like a joins, unions, like a select, filter the data, and so you conditional split. There are alter row transformation. You just need to update and insert. There are some new branch. There are some joins, unions, and aggregations like some max, min, count, average. So all Windows functions like dense rank, row number, rank. So these are all the transformations, guys. Okay, so where you need to perform, even in a SQL also, when you want to write any SQL query, so generally need to perform some transformations, right, on top of the data. First you need to select the data, you need to do some transformation, maybe in aggregations, right? So these are all the transformations, guys. Okay,
So
so
these transformations are being done so that like we are able to make uh, these files set into these target systems.
correct, correct. So my customer, guys, you or your customer, they don't want to. Initially, what we need to do, guys, we just want to ingest the data. That is fine. But my customer needs some transformations on top of the data. I don't. My customer don't want as it is data to be loaded into the target system. They want some data should be transformed. Okay. They don't want all the data. Okay. So they want me to perform some joins. They want me to perform some unions. They want me to perform some. For example, guys, in a source system, this file one having 100 columns, right? But the customer don't need 100 columns. He needs only 50 columns. 50 columns should be inserted into target. Okay, so that's what the refinery process, that's what the transformations. Okay, so how exactly you need to do the transformation, that we can discuss in a mapping data flows. In ADF itself, we have a mapping data flows. It came into picture in 2019. From that time onwards only we can call it ADF is completely integration tool, complete ETL tool, guys. Okay, we can extract, load, and transform, or else we can extract, transform, and load. This is what an ADF. Okay, so it's a completely ETL tool or ELT tool where exactly you need to move data from source to target initially. So sometimes what we need to do, what we are following in real time, and maybe you can follow different way. ETL, there are ETL and ELT approach. Okay, I'm talking about ETL and ELT approach. What is ETL? Extract, transform, and load. Okay, and what is ELT? extract, load, and transform. Okay, so ADF is an ETL or ELT approach. Either one is fine. Okay, you can achieve ETL or ELT. You can extract the data from the source system. You can transform the data and load the data into target. Okay, target means maybe you can be able to load the data into cloud storages or SQL database. Okay, anyway, that we can discuss. What is the storage account? What kind of storage account we have? And what kind of databases cloud supports, and how exactly you need to move data, that we can discuss clearly. So just on high level, ADF is an ETL or ELT approach: extract, load, transform. Extract, load, and transform. You can extract the data from the source system and load the data and transform the data accordingly. Yes guys, go ahead. Hello.
Hey Suresh, Trinath here.
Yeah, Trinath.
I have a question here. Okay, so the first point is like a linked services. So we need to be provide the username and password for the connection. I guess username and password cannot be shared across the organization. It comes under governance complaints. So this linked service will be handled by the admin team, or maybe will it be authorized by the developer? How does it works actually? Because every time I'm getting the files from the third party vendor to process it in our system, so definitely it is kind of an encrypted one and it cannot be shared across the peoples. So how does it handles?
There are different kinds of authentications, guys. I mean, I mean to say that but generally in the normal, as you mentioned, normal development like Java.NET, so we generally keep that all the credentials in application.properties file or somewhere where we need to keep some files, right? But here in a cloud, especially, we have so the different kinds of authentications we have. So it's sometimes what will happen, it's closely integrate with our Azure Active Directory. You are part of Active Directory. Many people are aware AD, right, in organizations. So you already part of an AD. In cloud, we have Azure Active Directory. So where we closely integrate with our IDs and everything to Azure Active Directory. There are different kinds of authentication: SQL authentication and Azure Active Directory. There are system managed identities, user assigned managed identities. There are different kinds of authentications where we need to use to connect to the source systems, guys, that we can discuss advanced level concept. But when we talk about username and password, there is a service in a cloud, guys. So we call it as a Azure keyword service. Okay, so we call it as Azure keyword service. Azure keyword service is a centralized place where we need to keep all our credentials. Okay, so this Azure keyword service, we can see, guys, okay, how we need to create this Azure keyword service in a cloud, how you need to keep all your credentials like username and password, since they are very confidential, right? So we cannot share across this username and password, right? So not only username and password, we can keep all the certificates, we can keep all username and password, connection string, right? So whenever you want to connect to any database, right, you generally use some connection strings to connect to the corresponding database, right? So you can keep the connection string, and when you want to connect any storage accounts, all these credentials we can keep in Azure keyword service. So what are all the secrets? We can call it as a secrets. Okay, username and password, they are secrets, we cannot share to anyone, right? So even your laptop password also we cannot share anyone, right? So even here also, we in cloud environment, we generally keep all our credentials, okay, in Azure keyword service. Whether it is any source system, guys, whether it is SFTP, we generally keep that SFTP host name, username, password in Azure keyword service in cloud. Okay, whether it is SQL DB, whether it is SFTP, whether it is storage accounts, any kind of storage. Okay, so we can keep that credentials in Azure keyword service. How you need to create this keyword service and how you need to connect to this keyword service from Azure Data Factory service, that we can discuss. Okay, so for connecting to keyword service, creating keyword service, and provide an access to access all the secrets from the respective keyword service, we can discuss clearly going forward.
Uh, but in real time, right, who owns this responsibility? Does it will be under a developer level or it is under admin level?
Yeah, So these things generally handled by architects sometimes, and admins also. They will who is having higher level of access, right? So maybe owner access. They will create this service and they will keep all the credentials in Azure Key Vault service. We have different keywords actually for each environment. We have dev, test, stage, and production, right? Generally, we have this our dev, test, production. So we have a separate keyword service for each environment, and somebody will create this service and they will create the secrets all in Azure keyword service. Whoever is having that complete access. Generally, we don't have. I mean, not, Azure developers they don't provide this access Azure keyword service, but we can just access that keyword service. Okay, but creating the secrets and everything, they can own that. Okay, so whoever is architect and whoever is admins, right? So they have the complete access and they will do this configuration for us.
So in that case, right, will it have any kind of a like every company will have some kind of a process? Maybe somebody will go with like a snow ticketing process, somebody will go with like a Jira process or something like that. So because the requirement came from the client, okay, suppose I want to transfer these files into the Azure Data Factory, same way, but this kind of authentication and everything, right? Do I need to discuss with the admin team, or maybe how, like, do I need to request admin team to connect with the vendor directly? How in real time it happens, similar kind of a situation?
Yeah, in a real time, what will happen? Admin people, they'll definitely talk. I mean, need to discuss. I mean, you have to be discussed about all these things with admin people only, because Azure Active Directory, Azure Key Vault, everything is managed by. Because sometimes even if you do not have any admin people, we have architects. They only can take in care. They have the complete access. Sometimes, most of the times, if you have admin team, they need to handle all these things, Azure Key Vault service and Azure Active Directory and everything, accesses and everything is taken care of for each resource level, right? So, for example, Azure Data Factory service. This is an Azure Data Factory service. Once you created this service, once you have access to this service, you should check actually when you create this link service and the data sets and whatever target link service pipelines and everything. When you create this, you should have at least contributor access. Okay, these accesses and everything is taken care by admin people only, guys.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Suresh, what kind of pipelines will you using on this?
So, I mean, there are different kinds of dynamic pipelines, and there's some the pipelines are some where we need to hard code that files and where we need to hard code the table. So there are different kinds of pipelines and the parameterized pipelines. So how you need to parameterize and how you need to reuse those pipelines. Okay, and so how exactly you need to configure that. For example, when you have different kinds of file formats and when you have different kinds of tables, there are different kinds of concepts like config table, config files. In real time, we have to be follow all these approaches, and how exactly you need to load the data from respective sources, how you need to create dynamic pipelines that we can discuss going forward, guys. Okay, so you can read data from config file or config table, or you can read the data from individual. Just need to select this file 1, file 2, file 3. Okay, I'll select all the files, but I want to filter based on maybe the file starting with sales, for example, right? So I want to pick only those files instead of all the file from the source. Sometimes what will happen, guys, in a source system, I don't want to pick all the files. I want to read the previous day files. Okay, so that you have to pass some configuration in Azure Data Factory. We have a copy activity where we need to copy, I mean, configure all these things. So how you need to do different kinds of scenarios, okay, in real time, different kinds of real time scenarios where you need to follow while practicing, guys. Okay, so I just want to take those examples. I just want to replicate here and I'll explain for you guys, because when you start working in a real time, you should be able to work without any effort, because since it is a new technology for you guys, right? So just habituate with that environment. Just daily practice, guys. Okay, so practice daily, you will get to know something about Azure Data Factory. For any new technology, we have to do some practice. Okay, so try to practice and try to understand the things And if you have any questions, maybe you can try different ways. Maybe I'll explain in one way, maybe you can try in different ways, and you can let me know this is what I'm trying, but I got this error. Okay, because this way we can be able to explore more. This way only we can learn new things, and we can discuss together, and we can resolve those guys. Okay, any other questions, team? So if you don't have any questions, we'll go to Azure Data Factory, when to use, and so what is the advantage of using Azure Data Factory. And we also need to discuss about so high level concepts, right? Pipelines, activities, data sets, and link service. That's what these are all high level building blocks or high level concepts. Okay, so see here, pipeline is a logical grouping of activities, and we can see here activities, and you can be able to run on, because once you want to run the copy activity, you should have both data set and link service. Link service is nothing but establish a connection, and data set to read the file from the respective source or writing the file. This link service and data set, we can use both source and target. And activity, for example, copy activity, right? So if I want to copy the file, I need some source, I need target as well, right? So I have a source and a sink. So in the ADF terminology, instead of target, we can call it as a sink. Okay, that we can discuss practically. I can show you everything, guys. Okay, just a theoretical kind of basic understanding. That's it. When we start practicing everything, you can understand. So just understand this terminology: pipeline, activity, data set, link services. So what are all this? And so I also, just high level definitions. A pipeline is a logical grouping of activities that together perform a task. When you want to perform a task, in the sense you just want to move data from source to target, right? So this is what the task. So using copy activity, you can move the data from source to target. So a pipeline is a logical grouping of activity and that together perform a task. A data factory can have one or more pipelines, guys. Okay, you can create number of pipelines in Azure Data Factory, and the activities in the pipeline, the activities in the sense of copy activity or filter activity, whatever it is. So activities in a pipeline defines actions to perform on your data, right? So activity is nothing but an action or a processing step, guys. Okay, so when you want to do any action, right? So when you want to copy data from source and you want to move to the target, right? So you need to use this activities inside the pipeline. So what is activity, right? So what is activity? Activities in a pipeline define actions. Okay, your action is moving data from source to target, right? So actions to perform on your data. And data factory supports three types of activities: data movement activity, data transformation activities, and control flow activities. Okay, so we have three categories. So practically we can see these are all definitions. Okay, so we have a data sets. Data sets nothing but select the file, identify the data within different data stores, right? So we just want to see that different kinds of files: file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4. I want to select only till file 3. Okay, so you can be able to create a data set, identify the data within the data stores, whether it is any data store, guys. Okay, and such as tables, files, folders, documents. So whether it is tables, now I have selected only files, but in real time we have a tables, folders, documents. How exactly you need to select those? Okay, tables or folders, right? And how you need to read the file from the respective folders, that also we can see going forward. Before you create a data set, you must create a link service, guys. Okay, before you create a data set, you have to create a link service, and to connect to that source. Okay, and accordingly to the link to your data store to the data factory. So you can create a data set, and before going to create a data set, you have to create a link service. Okay, to establish a connection to source. So this is a link service. Link services are much like connection strings, guys. Okay, they're like connection strings. That's what we discussed. Just need to authenticate. In a diagram we discussed it, right? Just we need to authenticate. Here is a sample scenario: to copy data from blob storage to SQL database. You created two link service. One is for Azure storage, another one is Azure SQL database. Okay, so these are all services, guys. Okay, we can create these services going forward. Azure storage and what is Azure storage, what is Azure SQL database, that also we can discuss going forward. Just in high level, if you want to connect to any source, any target, you have to create a link service. Link service is nothing but connection to the source and target. Okay, so let's discuss about some ADF architecture. Okay, so first I'll explain this architecture. So this is an Azure Data Factory version 2 service, guys. Okay, and it's hosted on a cloud. So you can see this diagram. It's hosted on a cloud, and this clouds, right? So this is diagram for cloud, and it is hosted on Azure Data Factory version 2 service. And this is for where you need to. This is a UI visualization tool. You no need to worry about coding at all. They are just code free tool, complete code free tool. Just drag and drop, no need to worry about coding at all in Azure Data Factory version 2 service. And we have version 1 also, guys, but version 1 is deprecated now. There are a lot of limitations, a lot of disadvantages in our Azure Data Factory version 1. And they were added many features in Azure Data Factory version 2 service. Currently, developments are going on this Azure Data Factory version 2 service only, not version 1. Okay, remember this point, guys. Whenever you want to use in a real time, whenever you want to do any POC, you can create Azure Data Factory version 2 service. Okay, so by default, we have Azure Data Factory version 2 only. If you want to select version 1, it's showing that deprecated. Okay, so it's automatically showing deprecated. For new deployments, you can use, for new developments, you can use this Azure Data Factory version 2 service. So using this Azure Data Factory version 2 service, I can schedule pipeline, I can orchestrate the end-to-end flow, I can monitoring the pipelines, right? So you can connect to on-prem apps. Okay, on-prem systems, guys, your laptop you can connect. There's nothing but an on-premises. So you can also connect from cloud. Okay, so using Azure integration runtime, you can connect to the cloud, and you can be able to move the data from one location to another location. Okay, so we can discuss, guys. Sometimes in a real time, we don't want to move our data. For example, I am staying in India, I don't want to move my data to US, right? So those kinds of scenarios also you can restrict that. Okay, you can restrict that in by creating your own integration runtime. So that we can discuss going forward, how you need to create that integration runtime. But at a high level, if you want, this is an on-premises, this is an on-prem system, you have to install the self-hosted integration runtime in on-prem VM, or else we can also install in Azure VM. We can connect securely to our on-prem systems. You can see here diagram. I can have on-premises apps, right? On-premises in the sense your local laptop, your SQL server. Maybe in your company you have already SQL server, right? Already Oracle database, already MySQL database. You want to connect to the databases, right? Simple. You want to connect to the database. You have to install self-hosted integration runtime. Otherwise, you cannot connect right from Azure Data Factory service. If I want to read data, or if I want to move data from here to here, and I need to use this self-hosted integration runtime, guys. Okay, so for example, I'll go to the example. So I'll create a new. So you just want need this diagrams, and you can take this screenshot also, guys. Okay, okay. So I'll create a new. So here, this is your source. This is your target. Okay. So for example, this is my Flipkart DB, for example, okay, or Amazon DB, whatever it is. Okay, and this is a Flipkart DB, guys, and I am trying to move data. For example, I have different tables here. Okay, so I want to move table 1 and table 2 to the target, but this is a cloud, guys. Okay, so let me, it's hosted on a cloud. But it's in Flipkart DB in the sense it's their DB, right? It's not placed in the cloud. It's their own DB, right? But you want to move the data from Flipkart DB table 1, table 2, table 3 to target. Target is my Azure cloud. Okay, so I can move the data. So this is my, for example, Azure cloud, Azure SQL database. Okay, so this is my cloud service. Okay, Azure cloud, and this is an on-premises. So we can call it this on-premises. Okay, so on, what is on premises, what is cloud, we discussed in a previous session, right? So on prem, so this is your laptop, for example, your laptop, right? So this is, I have taken another DB from Flipkart, and I want to move data from table 1, only table 1 and table 2. Okay, so I have to connect like this. So if I want to move data, so you have to use here Azure Data Factory service. Okay, so this is what Azure Data Factory service, and you need to connect, guys. If I want to connect, right, to the source system from Azure Data Factory, what is your first step to connect to the on-prem system? You have to be installed here self-hosted integration runtime. Okay, so how you need to create a shir, so you need to create shir. Okay, so shir means self-hosted integration runtime. Self-hosted. Okay, so SHR means self-hosted integration runtime. Okay, so you have to be installed this self-hosted integration runtime, especially when you want to move data from on-prem to cloud, guys. Okay, so this is what the self-hosted, your first step need to install the self-hosted integration runtime. How you need to install, I'll show you. Okay, no need to worry. Just a high level, just try to understand. It's in my DB is there in on-prem system, and I want to move to the cloud, right? So I need to create a self-hosted integration runtime to connect to my on-prem system. And so anyhow, you have to create a link service, data sets, and all these steps are common. But while creating a link service, instead of using auto resolve integration runtime, guys. Okay, so auto resolve I discussed, right? So if you want to move data from cloud to cloud, or any public network to cloud, you can use this auto resolve. That is fine, by default you have that. But when you want to connect to the on-prem like Flipkart DB, you have to install the self-hosted integration runtime in their VMs. In wherever your Flipkart DB is there, you can install there, or else you can also install in Azure VM. Okay, so I'll show you how you need to create this self-hosted integration runtime and how exactly you need to connect to the source. Okay, going forward. So here, so I just created here Azure Data Factory service, and we have some key which we have generated from Azure Data Factory. We need to authenticate that key to the SHIR. So this is advanced level, guys. I'll explain these things while after creating a pipelines using self-hosted IR, how we need to create this IR. So we can discuss going forward. Okay, just a high level. We need to install the self-hosted integration runtime. We need to connect. For example, this is a cloud, right? I can be able to move the data to the cloud accordingly. Okay, so you have to create link services. Okay, you have to create a data set, so your wish. Okay, so whatever your requirement, you need to create whatever the source system you have, you need to connect to that source system, and you need to connect to that, and you need to move the data to the target. Ultimately, what you're trying to do, guys, here, trying to move data from whether it is on premises, whether it is the cloud, right, whether it is any public network. Ultimately, your intention is to move data from source to target, right? So whether it target is a cloud with respect to this example, and source is on-prem system. Okay, so source is, for example, Flipkart DB is a SQL server. You have different tables. You want to move those tables to the target cloud, right? For that, you need to create a data factory service. And for you to connect on-prem, you need to install the self-hosted integration runtime. How you need to create this integration runtime, we can discuss. No worry. Okay. And to connect to the cloud, and finally, I'll load all the data into target. So I want to move table 1 and table 2. So my intention is I don't want 3 tables. I want to move table 1 and table 2 to the target. Okay. So this is what, guys. Okay. So link service data sets, and link service and data set for target also is same. Okay. And the only thing you need to change here, you need to connect to the on-prem, right? It's in private network, right? So you have to install the self-hosted integration runtime, and you can connect to the source accordingly. Okay. Even for target also, if it is an on-premises, you can also do the same. So we still not discuss any practical examples. We will discuss, guys, practical things tomorrow onwards, and I'll also explain how exactly you need to create a free account. Okay, so then tomorrow I'll start explaining about why we need to use Azure Data Factory, and just starting 15 minutes I'll explain that, and we will go the examples. Okay, so this is what Azure Data Factory architecture. Yes, guys, go ahead.
Suresh, the SHIR which you just explained, is that also applicable for any kind of data like unstructured or semi-structured data kind?
Yes. Any kind of data you can use. But while installing this SHIR, you should be very careful. So sometimes what will happen, your on-prem system is have hosted on a virtual network, or it's in a private network. You have to check. So you network people can check all these things for you, and so they need to connect all these things. Okay, no need to worry about installing network security groups, right? Subnets, virtual networks, everything they can do for you.
All right, thank
Suresh,
you.
this is Navin. Uh, the first, as per the requirement, first we have to decide the integration runtime. Means suppose, for example, on premises to the cloud, if I want to move it, then I have to go to for the self-hosted integration runtime. Like means based upon the requirement, first we have to decide the integration runtime or how?
Yeah, so based on not integration runtime, based on requirement, first you need to identify the source system, what kind of source system it is, whether it is hosted on a private network, whether it is hosted on a virtual network. First, you need to identify that. Then you need to take a course of action saying that you have to install the self-hosted integration runtime. Then you need to connect to the on-prem systems accordingly.
Okay. And one more thing, can we create a multiple activities in pipeline
Yes, you can do that. You can use multiple activities. That's what the
in
beauty of a
one
pipeline.
pipeline?
One pipeline, but there is a
Oh,
limitation till 40 activities you can configure for single pipeline. Try to understand
oh,
this. Okay, but
okay,
this is a
okay.
limitation, but real-time people, whoever is working continuously, they knows that limitations as well. maybe if you guys are not aware these things, but I can also explain the limitations part as well, guys, because there is some activities like lookup activity. It supports till 4 MB and till 5,000 rows only, because we tried all these things, and I just want to tell you the alternative solution, workaround for this solution also I'll explain going forward, so that once you start implementing these activities in a pipeline, you can habituate with that workarounds as well. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And Suresh,
Hello.
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so Suresh, here. So basically, to build this data pipeline, right, as you mentioned, we need to create a SHAR and networking and everything. So will it be possible to share like what are the, because since we are doing a practice, we are in the part of the like a sandbox or portal.azure, where we need to create from the end to end, from the beginning to end, we have to create the complete pipeline, data pipeline. So but in real world it doesn't require to create all the services and everything. So will it be possible to share what are the activities owned by the admin team, what is owned by the developer? If you have some kind of information, yeah, please share those details as well.
Most definitely, guys. I mean, I'll start explaining that as well while creating these services, right? I mean, Azure Data Factory service, we have to create as a so you have to understand that how you need to create this services, what is happening internally, right? But generally in a real time, they will create the services for you and they will give it you that access. But here
Exactly.
I'll also create the services, and what admin people can take in care with respect to that services creation and access related one, what exactly the roles and responsibilities, and creating virtual machines and everything I'll start explaining, and what we need to take in care and admin people can take in care.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Suresh, earlier in that structure, you talked about ETL and ELT. Now, when you talked about the activities in that, you mentioned about controlling activities as well. So,
Correct.
do we perform that, or can you elaborate a bit more about that controlling activity as well?
Yeah, sure. So tomorrow you can understand, guys, once I start opening that, what are all data movement activities like copy activity, what are all the data transformation activities like Databricks, data flow, Python. There are different kinds of activities. So transformation activities, I'll show you practically tomorrow session, and I'll explain that. Control flow activities, control flow activities in the sense for each activity, filter. There are some control activities also there. So I can also show you that how exactly you need to use these control flow activities in a pipeline. So they basically categorized all these activities in a three different types. One is data movement activity, another one is transformation activity, another one is control flow activities. For each category, we have certain kinds of activities that you need to use in your pipelines. Okay, based on your requirement, you can use those. Like for each activity, we have different kinds of activities like lookup activities, get metadata activity, copy activity, data flow activity, notebook activity, filter activity, validation activity, if condition activity, delete activity, wait activity, set variable, append variable. The different kinds of activities, web activity, webhook. So we can discuss one by one all these activities, and what are all comes under control flow activities, what are all comes under data transformation activities, what are all comes under data movement activity. Okay, that we can discuss practically. I can show you in a tomorrow session once we start creating a portal. Okay, free account, right? So till now we have not created any free account. Tomorrow we'll do all these things, how exactly you need to create a free account, and how you need to access the portal, what level of access you need. Once you join into a company, they will provide you the access, guys. We don't know what level of access they provided, but you have to check that. All these things we can discuss, okay, in tomorrow session. If you want to create any service like data factory, if you want to create any pipelines, link services, data set, you should have contributor access. Remember this point. Okay, without contributor access you cannot do anything. Maybe if you are working on a support kind of environment, they will give the reader access. Okay, they won't allow you to modify anything, they won't allow you to just want to monitor those pipelines, that's it. Okay, so there are different kinds of access, different kinds of role assignments. Okay, and we can discuss in tomorrow's session. Almost we have till 2000 role assignments are there, but how you need to provide these accesses, how you need to, who is taking care of all these things, and whom should we reach out in a real time once you start. Maybe they provide access to subscription level, like I'll show you guys practically tomorrow. Okay, they will provide an access at subscription level, and what exactly you need to do initially, right? Initial checks, right? Once you join at a company, what is the initial checks? We'll start tomorrow. Any other questions,
Sure.
team?
All right. So you, in the first session, you had talked about like referring to few notebooks or books. So are you going to
Correct.
share that, or we go to purchase them?
I
You'll
have
just
to,
refer
guys.
to them?
I have to share those, because those notebooks are very useful for you. For you to, you can replace that code. You can understand the code how we have written. Okay, so you have to
Suresh,
understand.
while practicing out the one we're gonna do tomorrow, so we will have some real kind of data set which we will be actually moving on from, so that we can have better stimulation.
Uh, Sorry, guys, come again.
Yeah, so my question is, so while doing practice, so we will means either we will have some real kind of data set, or just we will be doing on some dummy kind of data set.
Yeah, we can definitely, guys, we can definitely do that with the dummy kind of files only, but we just want to replicate that in a real-time environment. The files and
All
everything
right,
I'll share you. I'll provide an access to that files, sample files and everything. You can practice accordingly.
all right. Thank you.
So any other questions, team?
Uh, Hello, hi Suresh.
Purna.
I have one question. Is it SQL language is mandatory to do some transformation in Azure?
Uh, I can say yes, guys. Okay. So SQL also we can use in EDF. So where we need to use SQL, I'll also explain that. And some concepts, SQL concepts also I'll touch. Okay. So no need to worry.
Okay.
So if you have some time, guys, whoever is having some time and you want to learn something, and you can focus on SQL, because SQL is vast, guys. Okay. So you can try to learn something from SQL, and like practice like DML, DDL, basic study, guys. Okay, basic study. You try to understand group by what is having class, right? So what is subqueries, what is joins. So try to understand this. Try to focus on this if you have some time. That's it, guys. Thank you all. If you don't have any questions, we'll wind up the session. Again, we can connect same time 7 a.m. tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So one more final. I mean, I just want to tell everyone. So whoever is not completed
అన్నయ్య
the
పోయిందా
payment, I have received the payment for few people. Can you complete your payment process, guys? Okay, I'll share account details or PhonePe or GPay in a group, so you can do accordingly.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.